One of the more surprising things that I have discovered since the release of Laravel Nightwatch is the number of errors and bot scanning attempts and weird things like that that hit our applications on a regular basis. Now, I didn't really think too much of it when I was part of the early access program. I kind of looked at this thing and went, oh yeah, that's weird, but I'm not too concerned with it because those routes don't exist in my application. If you take a look inside of Laravel Nightwatch, if you go into your request, you can look at the 4xx, so the 400 level errors, 401s, 403s, 404s, things like that. So from the request dashboard, if you were to go down into the unmatched routes, you can see there's 5,800 unmatched routes that are returning a 4xx response. And if we click in here, you can see that these are fairly obviously nonsense requests, things to routes that don't exist, things that are, requests to things that are definitely not in your application. You know that these things don't exist. There's lots of requests into WordPress routes, WP login, WP content, W includes, things like upload, install pack, like all of this kind of stuff. You know this stuff doesn't exist in your application. So the problem with all of this, right, is if we come into our quota, our usage chart, you can see, oh no, like we had this fairly steady bar, fairly steady bit by bit. All of a sudden you get this, right? This kind of stuff happens. This kind of stuff happens where you get this hit. Now, hasn't really been a problem in the past with other monitoring solutions because Laravel Nightwatch likes to go quite wide in terms of your Laravel application. It looks at requests and outbound requests and jobs and whatever else that it covers. Whereas other tools, I've never picked this up before because I'm not monitoring individual requests or anything like that. So I haven't seen this kind of thing before. I've also noticed inside of Laravel's application, Laravel Cloud's application logs, if you search for forbidden, you'll see things like this. So there are some built-in rules to Laravel Cloud that are blocking requests to indexed back files, known config files, mail config files. I've seen in here like credentials, just scrolled past there somewhere. Here, credentials.json. I've seen requests to all kinds of like very common things. And if you were to hit one of these routes, for example, like if we went to /API index.php.back, here, you'll get like an Nginx 403. So Laravel Cloud is protecting us from these kinds of requests into our application. What I have found to be a better approach, I think, to stop consuming edge requests inside of Laravel Cloud, to stop consuming all kinds of quota utilization inside of Laravel Nightwatch, is to actually set up security rules within Cloudflare directly. So there is one important thing that you need to be mindful of here first, and that is that you need to have a CNAME set up from your application and a custom domain into Laravel Cloud. If you're using an A record or you're not routing through Cloudflare, this doesn't work, okay? You need to have the CNAME, the gold cloud, the proxy Cloudflare here. So I've just created a new rule in here. I've just called it bot scanning. And what I've put in here is a whole bunch of different exclusions, things that I've seen inside of those logs, inside of Nightwatch, inside of Laravel Cloud, that basically goes, okay, if we see any of these things, I don't have an administration endpoint, I don't have an administrator endpoint, or an admin's, no Apache, none of the WordPress stuff, XML RPC, please don't look for my composer.json or log files. Common exploits are, people long ago, I don't think it's common anymore, but you'd create a PHP info.php file, on your server. PHP mailer, mailer, all of these kinds. I don't have any ASPX or ASHX. I don't have any files. I don't want anyone accessing log files by accident or text files or whatever. And I want this to apply to laracon.au and all subdomains thereof. So we hit this endpoint before. We saw this 403. This is coming from Laravel Cloud. If we were to go in here and say, in here, we put another endpoint in, request.uri.path contains API. I don't have an API on the Laracon website, don't go looking for it. But if we see /API anywhere in the request path, let's save this. If we were to go back here now, we'll get this beautiful Cloudflare page. So this is being stopped at Cloudflare. This is not coming to Laravel Cloud. It is not troubling any of the middleware inside of my application. It is not sending any requests through the agent to Nightwatch. These things are not going to end up hitting my quota in here. And I've sort of started to build this list up over time. So the more things that I see hitting here, the more obvious transgressions, the more obvious bad requests coming into my application, I just go in there and add them into Cloudflare. I did see on the weekend that the CTO from Cloudflare was like, do we need a one-click option to set this up? Which would be handy, right? You go into the security dashboard and you can add from a template, block non-Laravel things or block WordPress or whatever. I don't know what that looks like. It was a suggestion that came from them, but I would recommend this, number one, to not use up edge requests inside of your Laravel Cloud environment and to not use up your Laravel Nightwatch quota.